Getting to the figures, if you look at what is happening here, you can see exports to India are much higher than imports from India. So we are very interested in good relations. But look what we export. We export materials which have been worked on, like machines, chemicals, medical instruments. It's an end product. And look what we import. Garments, jewelry, stones, agricultural products, and a little bit of machines, but you can still see it's still the same kind of shift. Material comes into Switzerland, we work on it, and then we move it out to India. Still today, you see that, and we import much less than we export. So we are very dependent on our Indian partners, and that is also the reason why there is a society required who gives help in these trade questions, and this is the Swiss Indian Chamber of Commerce. The Swiss Indian Chamber of Commerce is taking care of these relationships, and you can see today these are the four most important know-hows which we share or which we offer in India. It's clean tech, very important for our industry. It's medtech, it's food processing, and it's architecture. That's four very important parts of industry where where the Swiss are able to pass know-how on to India. Today, there are approximately 200 Swiss companies in India. The ambassador mentioned 180. We think it's 200 because we also include joint ventures into the figure. We have about 60,000 people employed in India. The investment, he was saying how much we invest, Switzerland invests about 5 billion a year in expanding of factories, in buying properties. And the biggest investor nowadays is Holcim, the Schmid-Heinig group in India, known for cement and other building materials. I wrote down some threats. The ambassador is not here, but I think he was talking quite intensely about the infrastructure. Let me give you a little anecdote about infrastructure in India. 1968, when my father bought the house north of Delhi, a place called Chandigarh. Chandigarh is the city which was built by Corbusier as a sample city how future Indian cities should look like. This city was built 1955 to 1962, and my dad bought a house there. And so, first time we went, 1968, I was 8 years old. You flew into Delhi, and then coming from Switzerland, usually you always arrive at night. That's always one of the very ununderstanding. There are no day flights. You always arrive around midnight. So what you do, you arrive in India, you take a hotel, and you go and sleep there. The next morning you take a car and you drive up to Chandigarh. 1968, the car drive is on a very small paved street, left and right. There's mud, and there are animals, there are people, and you drive 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Today, it is a 4-lane, both sides highway. But you know what? It also takes 4.5 hours. It's not faster. What happens is that the growth of population, the growth of cars is faster than they are able to increase their infrastructure. So today you have the same amount of time as 1968 to travel these 300 kilometers. And this you see all over India. They are trying hard to increase the infrastructure, but they don't manage to cope with the growth. So some people are happy that growth is not that high the last 2 years anymore. So maybe they can catch up with building infrastructure. And if you look at the train system, I mean, you go into these trains, they are still from the British. Nothing has changed. And you still live with the trains from those times. And so you don't wonder that the infrastructure is not coping with the rest. And that's a big difference to China. When China, everything is done and there's modern. So that's a big problem. The second big problem in India is corruption. Nobody likes to talk about it, but India is very difficult in dealing with politicians. And we live in the place we live in Chandigarh. If you want to have water in your house, you have to bribe the guy from the water company. Otherwise, suddenly you have no water, and then it's said, oh, the pipe is broken, we can't do anything. If you don't add some little amount, suddenly you don't have water. And this goes on with all kinds of issues. If you want to have a working permit, if you want to have a building permit for a company, you are always coped with corruption. This is a very difficult thing to match.